as easy as this is to forget, because that's the only capacity that we ever know him in, he also has, like, his most successful book is basically a self-help book. And there are people who come to him for that, and who, want to, like, and there are people who I've even had tell me, like, look, I really used to really like Jordan Peterson because he helped me, he helped me kick my heroin habit. He helped me whatever, right? Because this is the sort of thing, that he's, going out there doing. I mean, it's like pretty basic anodyne self-help you get anywhere, right? But there are people who are attracted to him for that. And then some of those people, then they come for that, and then they stick around for the toxic right-wing politics. And so I do think that with some of those people, you might actually, I mean, like some, a couple of people who sent me messages like that have said, but now I kind of see that he's an asshole, right? Because of stuff that you and other people have said. So I think some people like that might actually come around. But I think it's probably true, thinking about this as I'm talking, but I think it's probably true that even with those people, like, it would still, I think a much more confrontational way of doing it would still make sense, because I think that it's not, it's not like talking to somebody like Rogan, who, as you point out, like, doesn't really have a fixed ideology. He just kind of has, so there are things that he likes, there are things he doesn't like. In other words, he's like an awful lot of Americans. With somebody like Peterson, I think that there's such, like, deep opposition there, and that, like, really, I think there's still some finessing about how you would do it, because if you just seem like the kind of person that they're expecting, who's just going to be some, like, shrill blue-haired college kid who's, like, finger wagging, right? I don't know how much that's going to do, but I still think the agenda should basically be to say, this guy, like, basically make it clear that this guy is an idiot, that he's just spouting complete nonsense, that, that none of this makes sense.
I'm glad you said that, because I'll be, this is my personal kind of approach, is that I'm not necessarily interested. I wouldn't be if I was in the position where I was chosen to date, hypothetically, to date Peterson. My goal wouldn't necessarily be to make him come out like an idiot per se. Because I don't believe that Jordan Peterson is an idiot. Jordan Peterson is a very intelligent man. Very intelligent man. He's just very wrong. And I don't want to say, I don't even want to say Jordan Peterson is wrong. He's just reactionary in the true sense of the word.
But do you think reaction is his brand, though, at this point? I mean, he was a professor that was, whatever dude. He says some fucked up shit about trans people, a law that he never got persecuted for. And all of a sudden, he gets, six-figure speaking fees.
Yeah, and if I could just interject, I mean, I know what Pascal means when he says he's not an idiot. He's a very intelligent man. But I also think it's not just that he's a reactionary, although he certainly is, right? It's that he also, like, they're like, okay, William F. Buckley was just a reactionary, right? Like a very smart guy, but very evil values. But, like, anytime I've ever seen a clip of William F. Buckley talking, I never had any doubt about what he was trying to say. I've seen many clips of Jordan Peterson where it's just this word salad of babbling nonsense.
Yeah, that's true. There is a snake oil salesman component to Peterson.
I think whatever intelligence Peterson had is morphed into something else, into where you're just getting a whole lot of gobbledygook.
Marcus, you didn't get it, sunshine.
I mean,
well, I think that
you're eating meat to the point you might die. Like, right? I don't know how much intelligence is involved.
To be transparent,
I've been shitting a 2x4 for a week now.
To be transparent, right? Jordan Peterson is on his hustle. He's on his grind. He's on his hustle. This is a grind. I actually think that if you sat Jordan Peterson down with some drinks in a room by himself, like, yeah, of course, 3/4 of the things I say are bullshit. But God damn it, I got 2 million views on my last YouTube. Are you crazy?
Look at my hot daughter.
Which by the way, the Russell Sabriglia, who I've had out a few times, is
Russell.
Russell. Okay, yeah. So he, when he was driving, so I don't know, maybe you've heard this before, but like when he was driving Slavoj Žižek to the debate with Peterson and in 2019 in Toronto, In which, by the way, to Pascal's point, Slavoj gave away his half of the speaking fee to an indigenous charity, and
oh shit,
and Peterson did not, and from what he said, it sounded like Peterson was very excited about how much money they were making for those ticket sales. But also, I was just going to say, the hot daughter, that like while they were on their way over, they were going to like have dinner with everybody before the debate, and Russell was filling in Slavoj about like all the different people he was going to meet, and he started to describe Michaela Peterson, the daughter, and he like told her about those weird tweets that they'd exchanged back and forth, with she's like, she's sending a picture of herself in a bikini to her dad, and so like, oh, see, people say this all beef diet makes us unhealthy, but it looks pretty healthy to me, actual tweet, and so when they met, like, I mean, you could just imagine the way that Slavoj is. It's like he's like being introduced to everybody, and like he's introduced to her, and he shakes her hand. It's like you can see the light bulb going off over his head. Says, "Ah, yes, the beef girl," goes over about as well as you'd think. But yeah, I mean, I think that how sincere Peterson is about it is hard to say. I mean, I think idiot was actually a poorly chosen word. I think what I should have said was crazy. Like, I think that's the more precise way to get across what I'm trying to get across there. That like, I think that he, to the extent that you think he's being sincere about all of this, I think he just believes some like bizarre nonsense, and like a lot of what he's saying just doesn't make any sense if you think about it for 10 seconds. And that I think that would actually, with him specifically, right? You'd still want to think a little bit about how you framed it, right? But like with him specifically, I think that it would be good to try to get that across, because I think that part of how that pipeline goes, right? That like people might be attracted to him for, things that he says that aren't that bad or whatever. And then they, like, look, you should clean your room, right?
Well,
that's good advice.
Let me tell you what my agenda or strategy would be.
Yeah.
My goal, if I were to be able to debate Jordan Peterson, would be to expose to people what Jordan Peterson's true agenda is. And when I say he's a reactionary, he's a reactionary. Jordan Peterson's ideal view of what life was in America was in 1957, when only white men had any kind of jobs worth a damn. Women only stayed at home, and everyone else who were not white men was subservient and servile only to white men.
You people,
Jordan Peterson, I put a tweet up a while ago. You may or may not have seen it, Ben. Is that Jordan Peterson is the Lothrop Stoddard of the 21st century. And if people are not familiar with Lothrop Stoddard, Stoddard was a very popular personality in the intellectual sphere of the early 20th century, the debate scene. He debated Du Bois. He was a eugenicist. He was a rabid white supremacist, and he was profoundly racist. And his hustle was going around trying to make the intellectual arguments to justify why his position was important. He was a reactionary, and yes, his PhD dissertation was about the Haitian Revolution. And my position is,
what did he say?
I haven't read it, but I think that he's trying to. I don't know what it is, but I think it was some kind of rationalization of why this is disastrous, of having Negroes, self-governed, and so on and so forth. But the large point I was going to say is that when I view Jordan Peterson, and Ben, if you digress in your agreement on this phenomenon, I have no problem with it, because it's not necessarily a materialist left position. It's kind of a cosmological position, and you may disagree. I respect it. There's a phenomenon called centennialism. You may or may not have heard of it. Centennialism proposes that at every centennial moment in history, there are basic sociological phenomenon that are recalibrated to carry capitalism and world events into the new century. In other words, in the early, usually they occur around wars, around certain geostrategic realities. For example, in the early 20th century, for people who don't know, there was discourse around sexual orientation. If you read the works of Havelock Ellis, transgenderism, reproductive rights, eugenics, immigration, racial supremacy, the future of the white race, population demographics. All of this discourse was very popular in the early 20th century. If you look at the scholarship of the late 19th century, you realize that the rise of Darwinism, scientific racism, and all of these other phenomenon, all of these academic disciplines, and this focus on intellectualizing phenomenon to literally give legitimacy to economic inequality correlate directly to crises of capitalism, taking them into the 20th century. My position, and again, Ben, I'm not saying that I require you or think that you may or may not believe in centennialism or this position. My position is that what we are experiencing now in the early 21st century is basically a form of a manifestation of social phenomenon that are being experienced as a product of a crisis of capitalism that are needing a way to rationalize it, to take it into the 21st century. And that, for me, I look at Peterson as the 21st century manifestation of Lothrop Stoddard, who is trying to redeem white male patriarchal exceptionalism because he sees various factors in the world putting that position in jeopardy.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's certainly true that there are things that people say and arguments that people make at different times that, that echo, what people have said at earlier times. I mean, I don't know that there's like a particular like interval or whatever, but I think that it is really striking though. I remember that one of the first, because I spent way too, like in some ways, like everything I'm doing now, I'm doing because of Jordan Peterson, because I have because back in 2018, when I wasn't, I'd like write an article for Counterpunch every 6 months, but like otherwise, I didn't spend that much time doing political things, but I ended up spending way too.
I discovered you with your Jordan Peterson debunking videos when it was like you in a classroom with a hella loud ass echo.
Yeah. The early struggles with audio or something else, but so like back then, right? I mean, I wasn't spending that much time on like basically my main interaction with politics was argue with people about it on Facebook. This is it's like 2018, early 2018, but there were people who were sort of people that I'd known a little bit at various points early in my life, sort of extended friend group or extended family who were getting into this guy, right? And this was like the kind of first splash of Peterson. And I spent way too much time like arguing with these people about it online, because it's like, how do you not see that this guy is ridiculous? He's a lunatic. And by the way, I mean, I do think that specifically, just to not let the original context, what Pascal was raising, get lost. I think that's because I think so much of his effectiveness in his specific case comes from the fact that he's like the sage, like a guru, that like, I think kind of piercing that a little bit, and like showing like how much of it like doesn't make sense. I think would be important in that context. So I think like that would be a context where like getting more into philosophy and stuff like that would actually be a valuable thing in a political debate. But but since I was spending all this time doing that, and I spent like way too much time reading about Peterson and to like argue with people about him. That's how our friend Doug Lane, who I'd known from a non-political context years ago, was organizing this conference about Peterson because Doug had actually had Jordan Peterson scheduled to come on his podcast, and then presumably Peterson or somebody worked for him finally got around to Googling Doug, and then they decided not, so they backed out, right? They didn't do it. Yeah. And then shortly after that,
say it again for the people in the back.
Yeah. Peterson backed out of the planned conversation with Doug, right? He didn't want
Jordan Peterson backed out. of a planned conversation with Doug Lane. Doug Lane, our Doug Lane. The Doug Lane.
Yeah,
the white man that we own.
That's right.
Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe on your way out. You can catch the live stream of This Is Revolution every Tuesday through Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Time and Saturday, 9 a.m. Pacific Time. This is Revolution.